Good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. Welcome to the weekend on September 26, 2025. I got all your stories for your rush hour ride home. Maybe you're already at happy hour. Who knows? I'm on island time here on vacation. I got sea salt in my hair, and it's never felt so good. But today we're going to talk a little bit about the Blake Lively trial. We have updates there. And we've also got an update to Jimmy Kimmel. One of the boycotts of Jimmy Kimmel has ended moments ago. We'll dive into that. And then there's a comedy festival coming to, I don't know if it's Saudi Arabia or UAE. Either way, it's making tons of news as comedians are speaking out against the comics that are taking the fat bag of cash to go perform in front of the Saudi royal family. All right, it's an interesting day. We'll get to these stories and more. Starts right now on The Rush. So yeah, on the first half of the episode, we'll be covering the Justin Baldoni, Blake Lively stuff. It won't be far away, so stick around for that. But let's go back to the news we've been covering all week. Sinclair is ending its Jimmy Kimmel boycott. Boy, this boycott lasted what? 3 days, 2 days. This is ridiculous. What kind of boycott was that? The blackout of Jimmy Kimmel Live is halfway over. Sinclair, one of two major station groups that preempted the talk show earlier this month, is allowing the show to return to its ABC affiliated stations Friday evening. This means that Kimmel will be seen again in major cities like Washington, D.C. and Seattle, as well as a few dozen other markets across the U.S. Nexstar, the other major station group blacking out Kimmel, did not immediately respond to CNN's request for comment on whether it will end the politically charged preemption. This is a big news for free speech, as we knew this blackout was a complete sham from the beginning. Could care less about Jimmy Kimmel, could care a lot about not standing, not letting bullies get their way. That's really what it comes down to. I have nothing else to say about that other than a ratings boom this week for Jimmy Kimmel, all because they tried to take him off air. I cannot be convinced otherwise. Hey, I wanted to send a thank you to all of the new subscribers here. Got a lot of comments from recent videos. Someone says, first time on here and I like you. You definitely earned a subscriber. And again, someone said, thank you for posting on vacation. I'm getting hundreds of these. I just wanted to say in a blanket statement, thank you guys so much for all of that love and support. This is actually my first quote unquote vacation since the baby arrived. I've, traveled a bunch prior to a dozen different places for stand-up comedy and other things. And just in case anyone cares about, what my content looks like, I've generally been working from 11 p.m. to 2 a.m. or till 1 a.m. every night. And then I've also been working right before the baby takes his midday nap. So kind of timing it out and trying to dance around watching the baby and getting some work done and also getting some sun. I wish we could just take the full week off, but as you guys know, I don't think we've had a official work day off in 5 years. And that's okay. You guys need me here and I need you, and we got bills to pay and sponsors to promote. So that's it. We can balance it all. We can walk and chew gum at the same time. Blake Lively updates. Let's get into it. Van Zandt responds to Wayfair and attempts to gaslight the court. This is from our pal across the pond, Leanne Newton. She says that they're just lying. Van Zandt is the company that was created by Blake Lively in order to extract private information from a private employer. So the employer had whenever you work for an employer, you have this sort of privilege that you can't have your information just taken unless it's through a subpoena, right? So Blake Lively creates Van Zandt, or already had this defunct company they were doing nothing with. They said, hey, let's create a lawsuit. They create a fake lawsuit against Jane Doe's, create a subpoena, and then they drop the lawsuit. Complete sham. 1,000%. No one is denying that whatsoever. But Van Zandt is claiming that they agreed to testify to the full period, of like the scope of when they would need, not just before the filming, but also after, what happened after the filming. That's when all the juicy stuff happened. Leanne Newton shows here that it's just entirely untrue what they're saying. The objections. Here are all the times that Van Zandt tried to sneak in an objection, stating they would only testify from the time the Doe lawsuit was filed. And then Leanne Newton provides 12 examples of them gaslighting the system. And, you've seen a lot of that. And you see a lot of this in trials in general. You see sort of the pre-trial shenanigans that go down before you present your information in front of the jury. So again, but it's important because, you don't want to limit the scope of what is available out there for the jury to make their decisions, right? You want this to all be out in the open. At least that's what Baldoni's side wants. They're doing depositions with the makeup artist. They want to get the janitor, the guy who did the toe, manicure, pedicures, whatever. They want it all. They want it all out there. Blake Lively's side, here's a narrow scope of information we're willing to give. It's like, okay, well, very interesting. So if you stick around to the end of this video, to the end of this podcast episode, I'm going to share what our pal Not Actually Golden is saying about which lawyer would you rather be, Blake Lively's or Justin Baldoni's. She's actually talked about some interesting things about why Blake Lively's lawyers are definitely milking the paycheck. So stick around for that. Well, here is the letter that was written on behalf of the Wayfair parties that was written to the judge to essentially, the motion to compel. This was them trying to compel Van Zandt to get out there and share all the information they have. Flip over every rock. Don't leave anything unturned. Well, the motion to compel was denied by the judge for failure to satisfy Rule 4.C. I'm not going to get into all the nitty gritty. That's what the legal TikTokers are for, but not exactly a giant win for Baldoni's side. Miss Abel's counterclaims allege that in August of 2024, prior to her scheduled departure from Jones Works, the Jones parties seized her cell phone, accessed the contents, and downloaded them. Counterclaims further allege that Stephanie Jones disclosed at least some of Miss Abel's private communications to the Lively parties no later than August 21st. So you can see the timeline is going to be the big deal here. What information was given to Blake Lively before a subpoena versus after? Now, I think it's obvious to literally everybody that this information, Stephanie Jones had her employees' information, her former employees' information, right? She seized her cell phone. She had the iCloud. She had it all. I'm sure she violated some rules of employment and got those to Blake Lively beforehand. And we'll have to see if any of that information makes its way into the court. We will have to see. All right, so stick around to the end of the episode and I'll share a little bit more Blake Lively tea. It's dribbling. It's not a waterfall right now, but as you guys know, this stuff can change in a hurry. I don't know if you guys remember when I was covering the Clayton Echard versus Laura Owens shenanigans. When I was on my baby moon, my wife's baby moon, when she was all but 12 weeks pregnant, still fitting into those itty bitty bikinis, a little bit of a bump. People were like, you've been eating too much on vacation or are you pregnant? Well, how about it was both? I'm pregnant with emotion. So it was on that trip that we were actually in Qatar, whatever you want to call it, getting ready to board a 16-hour flight home when we had breaking news. So I'm telling you right now, breaking news always comes while I'm at the airport. So expect breaking news pretty soon. But coming up next, here's what we're going to dive into. And by the way, this is worth sticking around for. It's fascinating what's going on in Saudi Arabia with regard to the whitewashing of a lot of the crimes they've committed. Crimes like harboring terrorists, crimes like literally chopping up journalists they disagree with. They've got a whole section of a prison dedicated to people that are tweeting mean things about them. And we've got a whole bunch of American comedians, many of which I've worked with, that are just going over there to perform. It's absolutely insane. I'll have this story for you next. Today's episode of the Rush Hour Podcast is sponsored by Tropical Smoothie Cafe, one of my favorites. Ooh, are they delicious. Start your day with a protein-packed breakfast from Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Oh, you thought they only had delicious smoothie options? You're mistaken. Pair that smoothie with a toasted breakfast wrap, order ahead online, and earn rewards with the Tropical Smoothie Cafe app. Like to customize things? Add more good vibes to your smoothie. Fresh add-ins like almonds, spinach and kale, chia seeds, or supplements like protein and Energizer. My favorite smoothie is the Peanut Paradise, chock full of 22 grams of protein. My wife loves the mixed berry Greek yogurt bowl topped with fresh strawberries and blueberries, which comes with a whopping 26 grams of protein. Make every day a getaway with our bold flavors and better for you pairings only at Tropical Smoothie Cafe. Tropical Smoothie Cafe, you're on tropic time now. Now back to the show. Today's episode of the Rush Hour podcast is brought to you by Lisa. That's right, your boy's in the mattress game. I've made it, okay? And thanks to Lisa, we can offer 25% off to my listeners with the code Rush Hour. I've chosen actually the Reserve Hybrid mattress. It is unparalleled comfort with a luxurious high-density memory foam designed to completely cradle your body for the most restful sleep. Don't you just want your body cradled? We all crave that, right? And of course, you get a better sleep, you wake up bushy-tailed, ready to seize the day. And you can go to lisa.com for 25% off, plus get an extra $50 off with promo code RUSHHOUR, exclusive for my listeners. And by the way, 100-day return policy. They ship the box to you. You choose on their website. 20,000 five-star reviews. Need I say more? LEESA.com, promo code RUSHHOUR for 25% off, plus an extra $50 off. Be sure to enter our show name after checkout so they know we sent you. Lisa.com, promo code RUSHHOUR. So here it is. Here's Shane Gillis, one of the biggest comedians performing out there, turning down the Riyadh Comedy Festival, and then there's other comedians justifying their attendance. Now, I wasn't offered a chance to go. I've thought about this, and there is a price I would go for. Like, if they wanted to offer me $400,000, it would look terrible. I would be a hypocrite, but it's like, at what price are you willing to be a hypocrite and take the money? You know what I mean? There was a company that wanted to sponsor my channel, and I didn't believe in their politics. I thought their company was a complete, fraud, and I know other podcasters that took the money, but I didn't. And it was probably $10,000 or whatever. And I was like, okay, good. Like I know I couldn't be bought at that level. But you want to throw $500,000 at me and we can wipe out some serious debt? Then okay, maybe I would have to live with that. But the interesting thing is, there's comedians like Bill Burr. There's comedians, most of them, that make millions and millions of dollars already. They are set for life. And they decided they would go perform in Saudi Arabia. Well, credit to Shane Gillis. He said no. Have a listen.
What? Where? Why?
Saudi Arabia and UAE or Dubai.
Dubai?
I think I'm gonna pass.
Yeah. For the troops? Is it for the troops?
Not for the troops.
What?
It's for the Saudis.
Saudi princes?
How funny is this? The guy's like, oh, so they're going to Saudi Arabia to perform for the troops? No, to perform for the royal family.
Yeah, and everyone's like, yeah, you should do it. Everyone's doing it. It's like, for Saudis?
Yeah.
Weren't those the 9/11 guys?
Riyadh Comedy Festival, and here we go. Andrew Schultz, Aziz Ansari, Bill Burr, Jim Jeffries, Jimmy Carr, Joe Coy, Kevin Hart. Sam. We got people. People have been going, oh, how dare you go over there after they killed a reporter. That was the big one. There's been a report.
They killed a reporter. They chopped him up into pieces and they carried him out of the room in briefcases. And they've done a lot worse than that.
Reporter who they killed. One reporter was killed by the government. Unfortunate, but not a fucking hill that I'm going to die on.
We did get an offer to play.
I think I'm going to go.
You're going to go?
Well, I'm only
Where?
doing 2 days.
Where?
I'm going in and out.
Saudi Arabia.
Just for get that
I would do
paycheck.
that.
Yeah.
So there's Mark Norman going for the paycheck. I mean, look, again, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. What am I going to criticize my peers? Mark Norman, he makes millions of dollars. He sells out everywhere he performs. He's a huge comedian. But this is what they're going to have to live with. Bill Burr also speaks truth to power. So many people are disappointed in Bill Burr more than anybody because it's like he's got no leg to stand on here. So there it is. The Saudi event divided the comedy world. Shane Gillis and more slam Riyadh Festival featuring Kevin Hart. Look at the reasons, though. Key facts. The event sparked blowback, including Shane Gillis, who said on an episode that he turned down a significant bag. I'm sure he turned down $1 million. Several critics of the Saudi Comedy Festival cited the death of Khashoggi, who was killed by Saudi authorities at a consulate in Istanbul in 2018, as a reason not to support the festival. Human Rights Watch alleges the Saudi government is hosting the festival to deflect attention from its brutal repression of free speech. Participating comedians should use the comedy festival to publicly urge Saudi authorities to free unjustly detained Saudi dissident journalists and human rights activists. I've had people perform, in China, and they say, look, you just can't criticize the government. And it's like, okay, do what you got to do. You can't, there's certain rules you got to play by when you're in different countries. But to take the money is when you don't need it. That's what's very interesting. Here's Mark Maron, speaking truth to power, saying, fuck these guys.
It's a Riyadh Comedy Festival. I don't know if you heard about that. This is true. There's a Riyadh
Saudi Arabia Comedy Festival. I mean, how do you even promote that? You know, like, from the folks that brought you 9/11.
And by the way, the crazy part is, did I see that right, that Pete Davidson is going? Pete Davidson. His dad was a fireman who died in 9/11.
2 weeks of laughter in the desert. Don't miss it. I mean, the same guy that's going to pay them is the same guy that paid that guy to bonesaw Jamal Khashoggi and put him in a fucking suitcase.
Yeah.
But don't let that stop the yucks. It's going to be a good time. Full disclosure, I was not asked to perform at the Riyadh Comedy Festival, so it's kind of easy for me to take the high road on this one. Easy to maintain your integrity when no one's offering to buy it out, you know?
Yeah, I mean, he's not wrong.
Well,
like I said, guys, to be quite honest, I mean, if I was offered $500,000, it would be hard to look my family in the eye and not take it, because it would be good money for my family. I understand that. I would hope that I would make the right decision. I don't know. I have no idea. Here's Zach Wood. And again, you know, I think he's from Silicon Valley. He just, again, eviscerates Louis C.K., I mean, Kevin Hart, all these guys who took the gig.
Year. It's the Riyadh Comedy Festival. And all of your favorite comedians are performing at the pleasure of Turki Al-Sheikh. And he is the head of the entertainment authority over there. And he has so many people thrown in prison because they tweeted stuff he didn't like about the soccer team or whatever, that there's a wing of a prison nicknamed after him where they hang people by their heels from the ceiling. Now, there's a lot of drips, killjoys, and dweebazoids who are saying, oh, they shouldn't do comedy over there because it's whitewashing a regime that just in June killed a journalist and killed Jamal Khashoggi. And
all right, so they go on. So it's obvious. Good satire right there. And look, you know, who's it? McEnroe just went viral for a story he shared years ago where he was offered $1 million to play a tennis match in South Africa, and he didn't go because it was during, you know, the apartheid. I don't know all the details, but he said the $1 million wasn't worth him being used as a propaganda tool. And that's exactly what it is. These comedians are being used as a propaganda tool. It's the same reason Beyonce was flown out there, and even some of these Bachelor influencers were all flown out to some of these countries that are rolling back rights. And the argument for going is, well, we don't have rights in the United States the way we used to. Who are we on free speech? And it's like, well, we're not hacking journalists up and putting them in suitcases, for fuck's sake. But either way, you know, people can vote with their dollar. They can decide to support these comics or not. And I honestly, like, I'm torn about it, because should comics take the high road when other people don't? You know what I mean? You know, the Trump administration, they're somehow involved with Live Golf, which is, again, the golf version of the Riyadh Comedy Fest. It's basically like they offered hundreds of millions of dollars to different golfers to kind of get involved over there. And that whole whitewashing idea, it's their entrance into the Western world, even though there's, you know, rights that have been rolled back for many a class. And it's like, okay, whatever, you know, as long as people are informed about what's going on. All right, we covered this morning. James Comey indicted by Trump's Department of Justice. Well, now, and so he's, I guess, surrendering, turning himself in. He says, let's bring on the trial. He thinks he's innocent. Well, now James Comey blindsides Trump with 3 stunning moves at midnight. Now, why is this interesting? Well, this is unprecedented times. This is an unprecedented situation where he's being accused of some things, and I'm going to share a clip from Fox News. Fox News, by the way, has been doing a lot of pushback against Trump, a lot here, which is very interesting. But Fox News contributors reacted to the indictment, saying there's no case there. But first, we've got former vice presidential candidate Tim Kaine describing some of the stunning moves that are happening in defense of Comey.
When there's a vacancy, the DOJ can put an interim prosecutor in for 120 days. That 120 days had passed. And after 120 days, only the district court judges in a district can approve somebody to be the U.S. attorney. An article in the National Review, hardly a liberal publication earlier this week, said you can't put a new interim in to do your bidding once the 120-day period is passed. So I think the Comey attorneys have an awful lot of grounds to get this thing thrown out. Look, I've had major differences in the past with Jim Comey that I don't want to really get into. But the guy's entitled to the rule of law. He's entitled to fairness. He's entitled not to be victimized by a clearly trumped up political persecution.
And of course, it's a trumped-up political persecution because it's a prosecutor that's like a junior prosecutor that's never even, really been in this position before. It's another Trump stooge. It is what it is. And again, no one's really arguing that. Now, folks will say, well, but the grand jury is, they're members of the American, their constituents, their voters, they're American citizens who said there's enough evidence to send him to trial. But again, that's what's being presented by the Department of Justice. So that's without any response by Comey's side. So again, we'll have to see what the updates are there. Here's a Fox News contributor reacting to the indictment.
To the indictment.
Well, I don't think there's a case. The things that Kash Patel that you just played that he was talking about that you and I have spoken about for years, Maria, the Russiagate stuff, I'm as big a critic of that probably as there is. I wrote a book about it. I think it was a disgrace, and history will remember it that way. This indictment is not about that, and it seems to be premised on something that's not true, which is that McCabe said that Comey authorized him to leak to the Wall Street Journal. If you look closely at what McCabe said was that he directed a leak to the Wall Street Journal and told Comey about it after the fact. So it's true that Comey never authorized it in the sense of okaying it before it happened. So I don't see how they can make that case.
Yeah, so there it is. Anybody who knows this situation, for the most part, has the same opinion, including Fox News over here, which is that they've kind of twisted this guy McCabe's words, who worked underneath FBI Director Comey, and Comey didn't direct a leak of classified documents. That's really what it's about. Well, here's Donald Trump saying, I don't have an enemies list. There's just people I want prosecuted.
James Comey, now that James Comey has been indicted, who is the next person on your list in this retribution?
It's not a list, but I think there'll be others. I mean, they're corrupt. These were corrupt, radical left Democrats. Because Comey essentially was he was worse than a Democrat. I would say the Democrats are better than Comey. But no, there'll be others. Look, that's my opinion. They weaponized the Justice Department like nobody in history. What they've done is terrible. And so I hope there are others.
Now, so again, former judges have said this will probably get thrown out because Trump has targeted Comey with his own public messages saying this guy's got to pay the price. So it could be Trump's own public truthing that will end up costing him here. It's interesting, because Trump goes, I don't have a list. I got a graph. I don't have a list. It's really more of a chart. I don't have a list. There's just a binder full of people that I would prefer got prosecuted. Well, we'll see how it all plays out. And by the way, here's another interesting thing that's making the rounds here. This is a document that's coming out that some people say place Elon Musk on Epstein Island. Here it is, Saturday, December 6, 2014. Reminder, Elon Musk to Island. Is this still happening? And again, I don't know what island they mean. Gregory Riches on holiday in Aruba, December 6th to the 13th. Is the island of Aruba what he was talking about, or is it Epstein Island? Can we get some more information? And why? And by the way, why would, if Elon Musk was on Epstein Island, why would he publicly tweet that Donald Trump was in the Epstein files? You know what I mean? I don't know. I have no idea. It's weird. But I'm of the majority of people that say release the whole files and let the public know what the hell's going on with all of these rich people. And as I promised earlier, we would end on some news in the Blake Lively stuff. It's all about retention, trying to keep you guys entertained here, like I have to do. Friday afternoon rush hour podcast. Not easy. It's you remember being in school watching the clock on Friday afternoon, just waiting for the period to end. So here we have Not Actually Golden responding to a comment who says, feel free to not answer, but whose attorney would you prefer to be based on your gut feeling so far, Lively or Baldoni's? Here's the answer.
Lively's attorneys are making more.
Oh, so she was saying, she said Lively's attorneys were making more money.
They're filing more stuff. They're sending out more things. They're having more disputes. They're billing more hours. They're making more money. And if you have a case where, you know, even if you're like, I'm not sure my client has anything, I'm not sure there's anything there. And for all we know, they totally believe in her. But even assuming that they're sort of like, I don't know, you know, as they go along, they're still, you know, raking it in. And I guarantee you, they have an incredibly heavy pen, which means they're billing for stuff like, I thought about it for 10 minutes, point two.
By the way, I would love to have a heavy pen. Can I bill for things? How does that work when you work for yourself? So she says these lively attorneys, they're making their money dragging these things out. And again, we'll have to. I mean, that's what lawyers do, right? That's why, you know, people who get divorced or in any sort of situation, lawyers on both sides are they're not starving, unless you're, of course, Laura Owen's attorney, in which you work for free. But what idiot would ever do that, right, folks? All right, well. Barring any massively breaking news, that's going to do it for me this weekend. But starting on Monday, I'll be back at my home studio where you can catch me in 4K. But I do appreciate everyone who's stuck around. You know, it's nice that I'm able to make my podcast while I travel for multiple reasons. But, you know, it's kind of like I don't get days off. It doesn't work that way. You know, I mean, I could take days off. You do whatever the hell you want. But, you know, I know what the feeling's like for the folks that, you know, rely on some random irreverent bullshit to get through the day. And if I could dribble some dopamine into anybody's veins, I'm here to do it, regardless of where I come from and regardless of how much salty coastal air I have flowing through my hair. So thank you guys all so much for the kind words, for continuing to hit the like button, and for all of the love and support and the subscribers. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't already. We'll be back on Monday. We'll see you then. Have a nice weekend. Do something I wouldn't do and then some. And don't forget, leave that job. Throw those middle fingers up and tell your boss to go fuck himself. We'll see you then. I'm Dave, and this is The Rush.